Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets powered by FTN right here on Game Plus Network. Also live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Smash the like button if you can. And do us a solid here at FTN Network. Chris Meaney here hanging out with you on this Monday. Hopefully everybody had a fantastic weekend. I've missed you guys. Last week was just a bloody mess. I still really can't get over this cough. It's a lingering cough, but I am back. I'm feeling refreshed, and I am ready for what should be a fantastic week in sports. I love the month of March. There's 2 months. I mean, there's 12, obviously. Not breaking any news here on a Monday. Hopefully I do break some news. We do have some news actually to break on this show, but 2 months that are just fantastic if you're a sports fan. October is probably my favorite, just with everything that happens. You know, the excitement in the NHL and the NBA, it's back. You got, the bright lights of baseball, postseason baseball. NFL is in full swing. You got a good feel in October. You're about week 6, between really week 4 and 8, but week 6, right in the middle of October, you get a good feel of who's pretenders and who's contenders in the NFL. Everything happening in the month of October. But March, same sort of deal, right? I mean, madness is just around the corner. That's exciting. It's a playoff push in the NHL and the NBA. The trade deadlines are over in those sports, and just a real nice push here from, plenty of teams. And we're going to have some great battles. The Western Conference is crazy in the NBA. I mean, you go on a 3 or 4 game winning streak, you can jump up to 4th, 5th, 3-4 game losing streak. You're into like 9th and 10th. What a fantastic basketball game yesterday in Dallas between the Suns and the Mavericks. The Mavericks on the wrong side of it again. I really do like what's happening with Dallas. Just they haven't been able to win those close games, but that was a phenomenal game last night. Katie was just excellent in that contest, and so was Kyrie and Luka. It was a really good game. Booker as well. That was a fantastic game. But so October, the push for the playoffs in the NBA and the NHL, MLB's, it's basically here, right? I mean, spring training games are happening every single day, and World Baseball Classic is going to happen here very soon. And then we'll have opening day in Major League Baseball. Fantastic showing yesterday at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. That was super fun to watch. Nobody could make a putt down the stretch. There's like 8 or 9 golfers that were certainly in it over the last few holes. And then we got the Players, followed by the Masters here very, very soon, of course, in April. But, March, it's here. Franchise tags happening in the NFL. I believe tomorrow is the day. And then free agency, I believe this weekend, right? In the NFL Combine yesterday. Just excitement in the air for the NFL draft. And anytime you have 3 or 4 quarterbacks that could go inside the top 10, and probably will, with the showing that Anthony Richardson, I mean, this guy is just an absolute specimen. He's a freak. And, if you just watched his tape and you watched some Florida Gator games, you may not have been all that impressed with Anthony Richardson. But if you did watch, you knew that he would show up and show out in the combine over the weekend. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, he ran a 4.43. He set a record for the broad jump, 10.9. He set a record, this quarterback, by the way, quarterback records, and 40.5 inch for the vertical. He was very, very impressive over the weekend. And his draft stock is certainly climbed. Now, when you compare him to CJ Stroud, and you compare him to, of course, Bryce Young and Will Levis, he doesn't have the same sort of experience. He's certainly raw. And when we got together on this YouTube network, FTN network, about a month ago now, myself, Jeremy, and Brian Cook, we ran through all the quarterbacks, and we did talk about maybe Anthony Richardson having the highest ceiling, but he is still very raw, and he still does have a lot to learn. But there's no question he has moved up draft boards. I mean, he's now into the conversation of a top 10 pick, where most mocks had him around 15, 18, maybe 18 to the Detroit Lions with their second pick in the draft. Now there's some talk where could he be the first pick overall in the draft? Will somebody trade up and get him? And if you're following NFL draft odds, which we will show you today, the quarterback will give you the updated odds today in terms of quarterbacks and wide receivers. And if you're following along, about a month ago, Anthony Richardson was 40-1 to be the first quarterback selected off the board. Just last week, I think, when we showed you the odds, maybe not last week because that was a bloody mess and I canceled like 1,000 shows. But, patience, Game Plus Network, appreciate you for sticking with me. And Quan and George, and giving you guys the last second. I can't do it today. And I'm sure you guys have been frustrated with me as well. But just the last time we showed the quarterback odds, I think Richardson was like 656 to 1. And now I believe he's like 3 to 1. We'll show you in just a little bit. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to dive into a little bit of the combine, some takeaways from it. I have an NFL mock draft that I want to show you guys as well. No trades in this NFL mock draft. We'll walk through it. It's 1.0. Maybe the second version, I'll give you guys some trades as we can just get a better feel too. The NFL kind of does it backwards. Free agency before the draft. Most sports have the draft and then free agency. I think I like that better, but we'll get a better feel of where there's not a lot of great wide receivers in this free agent class. We're going to remind you guys of the wide receiver free agents and the running back free agents. And when these guys go to different scenarios and different teams, some things may change just a little bit. And then maybe we can incorporate some trades into 2.0 mock version. But I will show you the mock version that I have, the mock draft that I have for 1.0 and just quarterbacks. That's what makes it such an exciting draft. Last year just really wasn't the case. It was an outlier draft last year. There weren't any quarterbacks going that early. But this year we should see some trades. Could see 4 or 5 different wide receivers in this draft. We could see 2 running backs. This is a great tight end class as well. I think we'll see 2, maybe 3 or 4. I'd say probably 2 for sure get taken in the first round of the NFL draft as well. So there's a lot of excitement in the air. Derek Carr is in the news. He's got himself a new team, reportedly. Allen Robinson is in the news. I think we're really going to see a different Rams team this year. Allen Robinson given permission to, not maybe given permission. I mean, he's under contract, but there's some talk about the Rams looking to trade Allen Robinson and eating a big part of his guaranteed money as well to get that deal done. I saw something on NFL Network this morning on Next Gen Stats, and Allen Robinson was more open than Cooper Kupp this past year, which isn't really surprising because Cooper Kupp garners a lot of attention, but it's a fit that just didn't really work out. And I was really surprised. I thought it would work out for Allen Robinson in LA. He was the best quarterback he had ever had in Matthew Stafford, and Matthew Stafford didn't have a great season, dealt with a lot of injuries. The offensive line wasn't good. The best play caller he ever had in Sean McVay just didn't work out for him. Bobby Wagner is not going to be with the Rams this year. All signs point to Jalen Ramsey getting traded as well. It could be a very different Rams squad when the season does kick off in September. So it's a lot of exciting things to talk about here today. There's a handful of games in the NHL. I'm going to talk some NHL picks and some NHL props. We've been having a really good few days in the NHL, so hopefully we can continue that. NHL playoff guide, a link inside the description of this video, live over at ftnfantasy.com. It's absolutely free, and it will cover you from here until the rest of the NHL season. There are 6 weeks left in the NHL season. I have every single week broken down, 4-game streams for every single week. Also attack the schedule with those lighter nights. That's how you get ahead of your opponent. For high stakes players, for head-to-head formats, I got it all for you. Most games played during the head-to-head playoffs, least games played. It's all there for you for free. Updated rankings over at ftnfantasy.com. It's a push not only for real managers in the NHL to en route to a championship potentially, also fantasy managers as well. It's just 2 weeks left in the head-to-head regular season before fantasy hockey playoffs. So it's all here. It's all happening. Daily Handle in the house. October. Let's go. PTP NFL mock draft. Oh, baby. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts as well as I share my thoughts on the NFL mock draft as well. So it should be a fun show. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. We're going to take a quick break. We do have a couple of promos that we'll address here a little bit later on, but there is a lot to get to here on this show, and I can't wait. So let's take a quick break, and we'll get into it. Derek Carr and company next here on Mean Streets.
I can't say enough about what we've got going on over at FTNBets.com.
At FTN Bets, your bankroll can be profitable. With the FTN Bet Tracker, you can tell your favorite experts across all sports, including the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball.
Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. I'm your host, Chris Meaney.
And with our premium content, you can take your bets to the next level. Only $49.99 a month. Use the tools the pros use at FTN. Our betting models run over 100,000 simulations of every game, with sides and totals in the NFL, the NBA, and more. Use the home run predictor to see who'll hit a bomb deep. Our NFL player projections will make you a DFS king. And the FTN Prop Shop always finds the best odds for your player props. All tools, projections, and models are powered by FTN data.
Welcome back in. So this morning, some news broke from, I think it was Tom Pelissero, maybe Mike Garafolo, to one of the dudes over at NFL Network. My apologies there. But even Adam Schefter, ESPN, I saw him tweeting it as well. Derek Carr. I don't know if it's official yet, Quan, but all signs point to Derek Carr signing a contract with the New Orleans Saints. Now, he's been linked to the Saints now for, I think, a few weeks, right? We've talked about some NFL draft props here and some, off-season signing props, and Derek Carr was, the odds had favored him going to the New Orleans Saints. There's some other landing spots. We had some fun with it a few weeks ago, potential landing spots for Derek Carr. Where would he fit in really well? The Jets, of course, were at the top of my list, but I think this is a pretty good landing spot. For one, Derek Carr hasn't really balled out in cold weather. And him in New York, if he was with the Jets, having to play, cold weather games in New England and Buffalo and, MetLife in Jersey, late into December and January, it just didn't really feel like that was the best scenario for him. But he goes to the Saints in a dome. He's the best quarterback inside the division. There's no question, right? We don't know what Carolina is going to do. I have them taking a quarterback, and I think that they will. And Desmond Ridder, and second-year quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. And then Kyle Trask, I think, will be the starting quarterback for Tampa Bay as the Bucs are strapped for cash. And I think they're just going to roll with Kyle Trask and company. Derek Carr now joins a team that has an elite defense. I still believe that the Saints have an elite defense. This is something that Carr has really never had in Vegas, in Oakland with the Raiders. He just hasn't. He just has not had a good defense. I think last year was a bit of an outlier year. Of course, he had a ton of interceptions and he was benched, and he wasn't even with the team over the past couple of weeks of the season. The final few weeks of the season, he wasn't with the squad. Of course, his weapons in New Orleans not going to be as nice as the weapons that he had in Las Vegas. You're losing Devontae Adams, you're losing Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow, but Chris Olave is a really nice wide receiver. Michael Thomas is, let's be honest about Michael Thomas. It's just I don't even really know what to say about Michael Thomas. He's a wild card. I'll say that. I mean, when he's on the field, he's productive. When he was on the field for a couple of games last year, he was very productive. He was scoring touchdowns, but he hasn't played a lot of football over the past couple of seasons. There's been some off-field stuff with Michael Thomas as well. Does he get cut? Is he a part of the future? I'm not really sure. Alvin Kamara potentially could be suspended. I expect him to miss a few games this season as well, but he's a nice running back. The offensive line is decent. Derek Carr is not going to be asked to do a whole lot. And don't let anybody tell you it's not an upgrade over Andy Dalton. Just stop it. Andy Dalton is not a great quarterback. He's okay. He is all right. Derek Carr is better than average. He has been pretty accurate over the course of his career. He's had some really good campaigns. He's like a handful of years removed from getting MVP votes the season that he suffered a significant injury towards the end of his year as a member of Oakland at the time with Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper. Derek Carr can get it done. I look at 2 years ago when there was a lot of adversity with Derek Carr and the Raiders. And, John Gruden was let go. There's a new coach that was brought in, upgraded, and Sachi. And there was a lot of just moving pieces that year, right? He didn't have a lot of weapons to throw the football to. At first, it was Darren Waller, and Waller missed a lot of time. And Hunter Renfrow had a really nice season. Henry Ruggs had some off-field stuff, and he was no longer with the team. Zay Jones kind of stepped up and was, thought of as a pretty good wide receiver, and he had a really good campaign as well. Chris Olave is a nice piece, and the Saints will draft a guy, whether it's in the first round. I know that they don't have their first round pick in the top 10. It's the Eagles, but they are going to pick in the first, near the end of the first round. They could draft a wide receiver in that spot. I'm sure they will address the wide receiver position in the upcoming draft as well. So I think this is a pretty good landing spot. Plus 160 I'm seeing over at PointsBet for the Saints to win the division. And like I said, I believe he's the best quarterback in the division. I believe the Saints are the best team in that division. And they really came on towards the end of the year. Despite, finishing as a bottom 10 team, the defense was still really, really strong and solid. So I like this spot for Derek Carr. As I mentioned, the Jets were high on my list as well, but being in a dome, I think it's significant for Derek Carr. I mean, he's been playing in a dome, warm weather games most of his career. And think about the division that he leaves with Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Justin Herbert and all those explosive offenses. Yeah, that's right. I said explosive offenses in the same sentences, Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. But moving over to the NFC South, I think is a massive win for Derek Carr. Truthers and another couple out there. Isn't that right? Daily Handle. Other news items here. Allen Robinson, as I mentioned in the top block, Allen Robinson, is he going to get traded? Maybe. We'll see what happens. He's still fairly young, quote unquote young, 29 years old. Not a great season for Allen Robinson last year. A couple fades in the end zone where he had some touchdowns, but couldn't stay healthy again. And this is the past couple of years now. Allen Robinson has not been able to stay healthy. But as I mentioned, the Rams are really going to they're going to be a different team. They're going to be a different squad. Of course, they've mortgaged a lot of their future over the past, few years. They've gotten rid of a lot of first round picks. And I've said it a few times on the show. It doesn't really matter. Tampa Bay Lightning are going through something in the NHL. How about Cooper benching Point and Kucherov and Stamkos in the third period? They didn't even touch the ice in the third period over the weekend, and then they got spanked yesterday by Carolina. But they traded a bunch of their picks, and they've traded several first-round picks over the years. But, they've been to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 straight years. The Rams won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I don't think they really care, but now they have to do some patchwork. They have to kind of figure out this roster, make it competitive. Bobby Wagner released, not going to be on the squad this year. Ramsey's probably going to get traded. Then, according to reports, he's probably going to get traded. And then Allen Robinson potentially moved out, but they may have to eat a little bit of that money as well. And then some reports, Daniel Jones reportedly wants $48 million. $48 million for Daniel Jones. What are we even talking about here with Daniel Jones and $48 million? I understand that this is the trend for quarterbacks, but $48 million, this guy was almost out of the league or out of New York this time last year. That's it. He was done. We didn't even know if the Giants would look for another quarterback, if they would sign somebody, if they would draft somebody. Yes, Daniel Jones had a great season, his best. He took care of the football. The turnovers were down. Brian Daboll did a fantastic job with Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones had a great season with limited options at the quarterback position or the wide receiver position, right? There's nobody. Sterling Shepard went down early. We were talking about Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins as good players, but let's be real about those guys. Kenny Golladay had one touchdown with the New York Giants. That's it. One touchdown. It came week 18 against the Birds when they had nothing to play for really in that game. So Daniel Jones has done a great job with what he's had, but $48 million is a lot of dough. And if he's getting $48 million, what's Jalen Hurts going to get? What's Joe Burrow going to get? My goodness. But some reports suggest 160 over 4 years. So that's $40 million. It's still quite a bit of dough. Be interested to see the route that the Giants go. Do they franchise tag now Saquon Barkley? Do they just let Barkley go and take a running back in the draft? It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Giants. So Quan, you do have a list of the running back free agents out there. And if you're not aware of some of the names, and we have addressed some of them here on this show, but I'll roll through them for the iTunes and Spotify listeners. And of course, you can see them here on Game Plus Network. Saquon up at the top, Barkley. All signs point to Josh Jacobs getting the franchise tag. Now, they declined to pick up the fifth-year option on Jacobs last year. Could have saved themselves a couple $1 million with the franchise tag. I think it'll be $10 million, and picked up the option last year. It would have been about $8 million. So unfortunately, they lose a little bit of money. I understand the thought process with the new coaching staff in Las Vegas and Josh McDaniels maybe not just being married to Josh Jacobs and wanting to see what they have in Josh Jacobs. But at the end of the day, they did lose themselves a couple of $1 million. But Josh Jacobs had a fantastic season. The heartbeat, really, of that offense is no disrespect to Devontae Adams. Miles Sanders, it doesn't sound like he is going to be a member of the Eagles. No shock here. No real surprise. This isn't really the Philly way. They don't really spend a lot of money on their running backs. And I think that they'll draft a guy. And I don't think it's going to be Bijan Robinson, guys. It's just not what Philadelphia tends to do in their drafts, especially in the first round. Howie Roseman has missed out on a lot of wide receivers, of course, and he'll be the first to tell you that. And that's why he was aggressive getting A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith kind of fell in their lap. I mean, they made that move with the Dallas Cowboys to move up, but basically getting picks for Carson Wentz and the third round pick and trading that and the first to move up. Well, they kept their first, but they've had a lot of first round picks over the past couple of years to move up and to get some of the pieces that they have. But Howie Roseman's going to draft a defensive player. He's going to take a corner in that with that first pick of 10th overall. Maybe at the end of the first, they'll revisit and think about drafting a running back, but I don't know if Robinson will be there at that point. We'll see what happens. But Miles Sanders, I don't think he's going to be a member of the Eagles. And, he's been very vocal about wanting to be a member of the Eagles. He really wants to stay, and he just really would have to take a massive pay cut. And, he deserves to get paid. He had a really good season last year, double-digit touchdowns. He's a really good running back, and, he has benefited behind a really strong offensive line of Philadelphia. And I think that's probably Roseman's thinking, is this line is still very good. Kenneth Gainwell had some really nice games in the postseason. He's into the playoffs as well, that they could maybe just draft a guy and kind of fill that void. But Miles Sanders would be a good fit, maybe with the Dolphins. I would like to see him in Miami. Miami certainly comes to mind anyways. I think that they'll be aggressive in getting themselves a running back, as you see two here on the board, Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. And, Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan, those guys have been linked. And, both of those guys really like running backs and the run game and guys in motion. And they're great play callers as well. And we'll see if they're aggressive in getting an Alexander Madison who's on this list. He could fill a void, but I'd say Miami has they'll probably have 2 or 3 running backs like they did this time last year and bringing in Mostert, and then they traded for Jeff Wilson, but they also had Myles Gaskin on the squad. They also signed Chase Edmonds as well. So they had a bunch of different moving pieces. Kareem Hunt is also an option potentially for Miami as well, getting away from Cleveland. I'd be really excited about Nick Chubb potentially being a true 3 down back, although they'll probably bring in a pass catcher through free agency, maybe a Jerick McKinnon that they sign, who's not on this list, or they draft a guy late. Dave Montgomery, Chicago, I mean, he could be out the door. It could be Khalil Herbert's season in Chicago. That's exciting for Herbert owners in Dynasty. Devin Singletary won't be back with the Buffalo Bills. Jamal Williams had a great season with Detroit. I think there's still a chance maybe he is brought back for the Lions, but that'll go down as an outlier season, of course, right there with Barry Sanders in terms of Lions records. He had a really nice campaign, but it should be DeAndre Swift's season. But let's proceed with caution, because Swift is yet to play a full season in the NFL like Swift, just like everybody else. He's very talented. He's very skilled, but I'm sure they're going to have another running back. A lot of these teams, you heard Doug Peterson say it last week, got to have multiple running backs, keep them fresh. That's longevity throughout the season. It's a long season, an extra week, right? And into the playoffs, you want to have these guys fresh. Deontay Foreman has had 2 back-to-back nice seasons, filling in for Derrick Henry with the Titans just 2 years ago, and then last year filling in for Christian McCaffrey as well. I think he's an underrated running back. All signs point to Tony Pollard getting franchise tagged as well. So a lot of really intriguing names here on this list, running back list. I think Saquon's going to be a giant, whether he's, a franchise tag or he is signed long-term or gets the dough. He's had some injuries over the past couple of seasons. I don't think he's injury prone. Some of them have been completely fluke, but man, there are a lot of good running backs on that list. Of course, a couple of them may not be available come this time next week via free agency, because they could get the tag tomorrow. So we'll see what happens there. You got the wide receivers, not as appealing, right? I mean, there's not a lot of sexy names on this list. TikTok boy up at the top there, Juju Smith-Schuster. Jacoby Myers is definitely the best wide receiver on this board.Ese are not ranked in order by any means, but for me personally, I think Jacoby Myers is the best wide receiver available through free agency. He's very underrated. A couple of years ago, couldn't find the end zone last year, found the end zone a little bit more. Allen Lazard, like, it's right. Paris Campbell, like, come on, there's not a lot of great names on this list. Mac Hollins, I think Mac Hollins played the most snaps out of anybody on this list just last season. He had a decent year, right? But let's be honest about Mac Hollins. I mean, he's not a true 1 or 2. It'd be a nice piece, third option for a team. Paris Campbell did have a decent season. He finally was able to stay healthy in Indianapolis. I'm not a huge fan of Paris Campbell. I think he would be an upgrade over like Quez Watkins in Philadelphia if they wanted to go down that road potentially. Darius Slayton's had some highs and some lows over the course of his career with Daniel Jones and company. And you also see Richie James on this list. Mecole Hardman, actually, there's been a lot of hype about Mecole Hardman over the past few years since he was drafted. I think really just anytime a Kansas City wide receiver gets drafted, even a running back like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, linked to Patrick Mahomes and the play calling ability that Andy Reid does have, you get excited about certain guys because Mecole Hardman comes with a lot of speed. And I thought he had his best campaign last year. He was starting to really trend up in the offense and getting some end arounds in the red zone. And he was really starting to kind of show his true upside before the injury. Unfortunately for him, he was just not able to finish the season. Nelson Aguilar is on this list. DJ Chark, has shown moments over the course of his career as well. So the list for free agent wide receivers, not as nice at all. And that's why we could see 4, maybe 5 wide receivers go in the first round of the NFL draft. And speaking of the NFL draft, we will take a quick break. We got some NFL draft props for you, quarterbacks and wide receivers. And then I will show you version 1.0 of my NFL mock draft next here on Game Plus Network. Back in a couple.
At DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bet on nearly any sport imaginable. The NFL, the NBA, college football, college basketball, golf, the NHL, tennis, Major League Baseball, MMA, and more. Download the DK Sportsbook app on iOS and Android operating systems, as well as on your desktops or in mobile browsers. Get the best bonuses using promo code FTN. Remember, the only way to gamble responsibly is to win.
Welcome back in. All right, let's talk a little NFL draft. So let's first start with these are from DraftKings. We have some NFL draft props. Just wanted to bring to your guys' attention. It's fun. Why not? Vegas knows what's happening all the time, right? They always do. But I just wanted to really talk about the rise that we've seen from Anthony Richardson. So let's bring up the draft prop from DraftKings. Bryce Young minus 200. Quan, I don't know if you remember, but I think Anthony Richardson this time last week or maybe 2 weeks ago was like 650. But I know some books had him at 40-1 about 3 or 4 weeks ago. 40-1. The rise is just phenomenal. I think he's plus 350 to be the first overall pick. Now, I could see teams trading up to get him because of the dual threat that he has and what we've seen from dual threat quarterbacks over the course of just, the handful of past couple of years, really. I mean, Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, and then what we've seen from, look at this. Yeah. So this was just a couple weeks ago, right? Anthony Richardson at 6-1, CJ Stroud at plus 250, Will Levis at plus 550, Bryce Young at 200. So, Bryce Young didn't partake in the combine. He'll have his pro day, I think, of March 25th, March 26th. I mean, checks in just under 6 feet. And Obama was listing him as 6 feet. So he checks in at under 6 feet. And Richardson is, like I said, he's just a specimen. But what I like the comment here from Daily Handle with Jordan Allen, I agree with him completely, 100%. Combine in a game is just very different. If you've been following Anthony Richardson, you really shouldn't be surprised that he balled out and he impressed at the combine, but it is all that anybody is talking about. Scouts, GMs, it's really everything that they're talking about, right? 6'4", he's got 4 inches and 40 pounds on Bryce Young. I mean, he ran a 4.4. He set the record, for quarterbacks when it comes to the vertical and the broad jump. Like, he was very, very impressive. Raw. I mean, 13 games? The other guy's got double the amount of experience as well. It's a lot of hype. Certainly it is a lot of hype, but I do believe he has moved into the conversation, certainly, to be a top 10 guy. And when I'm looking at quarterbacks here on this list, I still think CJ Stroud is my favorite quarterback. I feel like I thought he was very impressive at the combine as well. Very smooth, made all the throws, the poise that he has. I love the accuracy that he has. And Richardson has all the athleticism and the rushing ability. And if you're a GM and you feel like you can coach him up, you are going to be aggressive to potentially move up and trade for this guy, whether it's the one spot or not. I mean, the Bears would be silly not to move out of that one spot, maybe a couple times, trade back. You could still get a really strong defensive player. Got a lot of cap space. You got a lot of holes in that squad. You feel comfortable with Justin Fields. I could see a team moving up and trading to get a CJ Stroud or an Anthony Richardson. But Young, I still think has this. Still think he's the smartest. I think, in terms of film, and I think he's on point, and the playmaking ability is there for him. And for Will Levis, I think he's definitely has the arm strength. You could really see it at the combine. I mean, he can throw a mile down the field, but I think that there's really good value there with CJ Stroud. What was that? 400? Was that plus 400, I believe? I mean, you showed a couple, so it kind of threw me off there a little bit. I think he was plus 250 a couple weeks ago, and 4-1. I think this is great. In fact, I have it in the bet tracker at CJ Stroud to be the first quarterback taken off the board. I do believe that the Texans are going to go with Bryce Young. D'Amico Ryan's a Bama guy. They're take a Bama guy. I just really feel like that's going to be the way that they go there. Richardson is, again, very raw project, but the ceiling is high. There's no question. And, he certainly could be coached up. So we'll see what happens. But the combine, it's a great tool. It's nice to see some of these athletes kind of ball out, and it was very impressed. I was extremely impressed with him over the weekend. But CJ Stroud, I think, also was very, very impressive. He's a quarterback that I think both of these, I think really 3 of the 4. I'm not really sold on Levis to be a game changer, but I think 3 of the 4 certainly could be a game changer. Let's go to the wide receivers and see the draft odds here. So Quentin Johnson is the the favorite here to be the first wide receiver taken off the board at plus 110. Then you got JSM, and in there Njigba is he's a lot of these guys are great. I think Jackson Smith Njigba is I think he's fantastic. Really, he's a guy that will play in the slot, strong lower body. Only 3 games last season, but when we saw him with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave on the squad, I really thought that Jackson Smith and Njigba kind of stole the show at times and had better games. Strong hands, good route runner. I do believe he lacks that second gear, that second speed, but I think the value here on the board is Jordan Addison. Daniel Jeremiah is super sharp. He has him as the first wide receiver taken off the board, and I kind of agree with that. We'll get into my mock in the next block, but I think Jordan Addison, I think he's the real deal. I think he can separate, he can play outside, he can play in the slot, polished route runner, excellent after the catch. He does have another gear, and he could be a high volume pass catcher, right away in the NFL. So I think at plus 450 is pretty strong. Hyatt, people talk about speed, thin frame. Another guy, slot wide receiver. He really does have speed for days. I think a lot of people were expecting maybe a little bit more speed from him at the combine. but I still think he ran like a 4.4, 4.3 potentially there. But, he is, I don't know. I think he's kind of a gadget wide receiver. I think there's more upside maybe with Johnson and Addison, and then Zay Flowers there. I think Flowers is probably a guy that's going to go late in the draft. Maybe the Saints are in on him. If he's available with the final pick in the first round, maybe we see Kansas City there. But Jordan Addison would be my pick here. I think at plus 450 over at DraftKings. That's another one that I have in the bet tracker. So CJ Stroud and Jordan Addison here as the first wide receiver selected in the draft. Daily Handle, I know he follows a lot of college football as well. He thinks Addison could end up being the best wide receiver out of the draft. So potentially maybe agreeing with me here on Mean Streets. We'll take a quick break and we'll dive into that mock draft here, and I'll show you where I have Addison and the rest of the wide receivers going. Draft's just 5 weeks away, 6 weeks away. It's more like 7 weeks away. We're back here next on Mean Streets. Keep her locked.
At DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bet on nearly any sport imaginable. The NFL, the NBA, college football, college basketball, golf, the NHL, tennis, Major League Baseball, MMA, and more. Download the DK Sportsbook app on iOS and Android operating systems, as well as on your desktops or in mobile browsers. Get the best bonuses using promo code FTN. Remember, the only way to gamble responsibly is to win.
Let's take a look at 1.0 NFL mock draft. This is my version. Jeff Ratcliffe has a free version over at ftnfantasy.com if you wanted to take a look at that. So, 2 weeks ago, I would add Jalen Carter number one. There's just some off-field stuff here going on with Jalen Carter. So I really don't know if he is going to go one overall. I can't see him falling that far down the list here. And like I said in the last block, I think the Bears would be silly not to move out of that number one pick. So this version of the mock draft, there's no trades. When I come to 2.0 after free agency and things like that, I'll have a couple trades, but I do believe that the Bears are going to trade out of that one spot. They would be silly not to trade out of that one spot. They have so many holes in their roster. They have like 60 million in cap space. I think that they're sold on Justin Fields. I really do believe that they're sold on Justin Fields. And I'm not ready to say that this guy can't throw with accuracy. I hear all the noise. It's the same thing people said about Jalen Hurts. It's the same thing people said about Josh Allen. You can coach up a quarterback. Let's see if they can bring in some weapons for Justin Fields. But trade back out of that one spot. You can still get a nice defensive player, whatever way you want it to go. You can still get an edge player if you wanted to. I got 5 here in the first round. I got 4 in the first 8 picks. So actually, there's more than 5 overall in this draft. There's a lot of really nice, talented edge players here in this draft and really nice defensive players. And if they can get a couple picks and maybe they can trade 1 or 2 of those picks and get themselves a wide receiver, I'm sure they'll address the wide receiver position throughout the draft as well. I know that they've been linked to DeAndre Hopkins. So we'll see. As I mentioned, I think Bryce Young is kind of in that 2 spot there. D'Amico Ryans, Bama boy, Young, Bama boy. But we could see the Colts trade up to that 1 spot and take a quarterback, maybe CJ Stroud there. Maybe we can see Las Vegas trade up and get a quarterback. I know they're linked to Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe they don't go quarterback way. Jimmy G knows the system from being with McDaniels in New England. So they got a lot of holes defensively. They could draft a defensive player and go with Jimmy G. We could see a couple teams move up here. Carolina is a team that could move up and trade. But as of right now, I got Bryce Young in that 2 spot to the Texans. I got CJ Stroud in that 4 spot to the Indianapolis Colts. I got Anthony Richardson in that 7 spot to the Raiders. And then I got Carolina in that 9 spot, Will Levis. So I could see a couple teams here, Carolina, Las Vegas, the Colts, moving up to that 1 spot, getting themselves the quarterback that they want in that draft. I got Jalen Carter falling down to that 5 spot. You see a lot of defensive players here. There's a lot of great cornerbacks. Witherspoon, I got to Philadelphia at pick 10. They're going to lose James Bradbury opposite of Darius Slay. A couple other cornerbacks here. Joey Porter Jr. Could be an option for Philadelphia in that 10 spot as well. And then I also have Washington taking a cornerback and Christian Gonzalez. And I also have, of course, Minnesota taking a quarterback, because what do we know about the Vikings? Their defense, a ton of holes. So some teams there in need of a cornerback. You got, a couple offensive tackles there with the Titans. The Titans certainly could use some help on the line. With pick 11 there, I got them taking an offensive tackle. I got the Steelers and the Bucks taking an offensive tackle. So I know what you're here for and you want to look at, and it's all exciting to look at the quarterbacks, but also some wide receivers. So I have the Texans at pick 2 with Bryce Young. Go and get themselves a wide receiver, Brandon Cooks, and there's nobody really on this list or on the Texans squad there, wide receivers that just jump out. They need a lot. Jordan Addison, as I mentioned in the last block, plus 400 to be the first wide receiver taken in the draft. I think that they will take a wide receiver at pick 12, whether it's Addison or somebody else that they like. Addison is my favorite. So I have them taking Addison there at that wide receiver spot. I got Seattle taking Jackson Smith and Jigba there at pick number 20. And I also have Quentin Johnson going to the Chargers at pick 21. Some outside speed there. It sounds like Keenan Allen could be done. Mike Williams has been, he's been great when he's on the field, but some injuries there. I think we'll see the Chargers. I mean, defensively, they have a lot of nice pieces. I mean, it's all about staying healthy, of course, on paper, but bring in a wide receiver for Justin Herbert there, Quentin Johnson at pick 21. And I got Jalen Hyatt there for the Giants at pick 25. The Giants they're a wild card. Do they bring up Saquon? Do they draft Bijan Robinson there at pick 25? I think they definitely need wide receiver help. I don't think there's really any question about that. So I have them taking a wide receiver at pick 25. And then I have Zay Flowers to the Saints at pick 29. Michael Thomas, as I mentioned, is a complete wild card. Chris Olave is going to be a player in this league, a stud season last year. He's fantastic. So get another wide receiver there. Derek Carr and company. All of a sudden, you got an offense there that's got 2 nice pieces at the wide receiver position, Alvin Kamara as well. And then, KC, if Zay Flowers was there, potentially, KC could be an option at pick 31. For Bijan Robinson, I've seen some mocks, Bijan Robinson to Philadelphia. I just don't think that's not what Howie Roseman does. There's a need at the cornerback position. He's not going to take Bijan Robinson at pick 10. If Robinson was there at pick 30, I can certainly see it. I can certainly see them maybe going another direction and looking potentially at a running back as well at that point in the draft. Maybe it's Gibbs at pick 30 for the Eagles. I know Jeff Ratcliffe has him at pick 30 as well, but I went with the Buffalo Bills taking Bijan Robinson. I think this would be split. Bills fans could be happy. They could be bummed. It's not a team that really runs the rock all that much over the past few seasons. I feel like they've been very one-dimensional. Of course, they have a quarterback in Josh Allen who calls their own number. They're not going to bring back Devin Singletary. I like James Cook. I think James Cook could be a nice player in terms of yards per touch and yards per opportunity. He was top 5 in both of those categories. You give him a few more touches this year. He could be a nice running back for the Bills and certainly a nice fantasy option. But Bijan Robinson is certainly the real deal. 4.46 is what he ran over the weekend. He's a true 3 down back, and I like everything that he has to offer. He can run you over. He can make you miss. He can hit the corner. He's got excellent hands. He's a strong route runner. He's got vision. He's got burst. I think he's absolutely fantastic. So as I mentioned, a couple different landing spots that I've seen from him. Philly at pick 10. I've actually seen the Lions at pick 18. I don't think that they'll go that way. I've also seen the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at pick 19. I also don't think they'll go that way. They have Rachaad White, and know they released Leonard Fournette. They need some help on the offensive line. They need some help defensively. I don't think that they're going to take a running back. I've seen some Baltimore stuff here. Now, I have Baltimore taking a safety here and Brian Branch. It's just, what do they need? A wide receiver. I would love for them to take, a Quentin Johnson or a JSN. If those guys go ahead, maybe they're thinking about Hyatt, maybe they're thinking about Flowers, but the Baltimore Ravens way is not to go the wide receiver route in the first round. We heard the comments from Rashad Bateman just last week. I mean, this isn't a team that really addresses the wide receiver position at all in the first round. They're a team that likes to take defensive players, and Brian Branch is a great one. So you bring in a safety who can play corner and move him around a little bit as a leader there, a Bama guy. I think that would be, on brand for the Baltimore Ravens, but this is certainly a team that needs some wide receiver help, and I expect them to do it. I've also seen Bijan Robinson at pick 26 of the Dallas Cowboys. That's something I wouldn't be shocked. Jerry Jones is a guy that will always do something that kind of is outside the box. Of course, he was very aggressive with drafting Zeke and giving him that money and Pollard franchise tag. Do they just cut Zeke, or do they find a way to restructure his contract? There's a lot of different scenarios they can go. How about the tight ends, right? I mean, this is a tight end class that is fantastic. Dalton Kincaid is absolutely just a baller, and I got him going to the Packers. Of course, the Packers could go a wide receiver way as well. Maybe they go Flowers, or they take Jackson Smith and Jigba, as a slot wide receiver that they can roll out there as well. But Kincaid, productive, good route runner after the catch. He's explosive. And then Michael Mayer as well. I got him going to the Cincinnati Bengals there at pick 28. Physical, strong hands, big frame, strong, solid run blocker. I think Cincinnati fans probably want an offensive lineman. We'll see what way they go, but imagine Michael Mayer in there with all of the weapons that the Bengals do have. So that is 1.0. Come at me with all your takes. Of course, I want to hear your feedback as well. And version 2.0, we'll have some trades in there. As I mentioned, I do believe the Bears are going to trade. It'd be silly not to trade out of that one spot, especially with all the offseason noise there surrounding Jalen Carter. Quick break here. We're going to turn our attention to some NHL picks and props, also some fantasy hockey talk here next on Mean Streets. Little NHL talk here on Mean Streets. Chris Meaney hanging out with you. Appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out. Daily Handle breaking some news for us. Derek Carr just agreed to a 4-year, $150 million deal. So it is official, now a member of the New Orleans Saints. And as I said off the top of the show, I do believe that this is a pretty good spot for him in a dome with a good defense, which is not something that he had. Let's be honest. It's not something that he had with the Raiders over the course of his career. This is a solid defense. He's not going to be asked to do too much. I thought he had a fantastic season 2 years ago, and I do believe last year with the picks, a bit of an outlier. You know, it's a complex system to learn from Josh McDaniels. It really is, and that's why I'm not surprised with the rumors to bring in Jimmy G. But Josh McDaniels is also not the smartest head coach, and I'll take that to the bank. Albert in the house, hello. So NHL talk here today. Let's lead with Brady Tkachuk. The Senators are red hot. The Sens are absolutely rolling. We talked about them on this show just last week at plus 950 to make the playoffs. And I think that's like 4-1 now to make the playoffs. They've won 5 straight. They got a fantastic matchup tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks. A 2 going to play for me for the Senators to win on the puck line at minus 105. I have that in the bet tracker. I'm all over Brady Tkachuk. This is Quan's boy, Tkachuk, over 3.5 shots. He's cleared in 3 of his last 4. And he's got points in 9 of his last 11 as well. And I really like the matchup. Of course, the Blackhawks have traded a lot of their good pieces away over the past year and a half. They basically traded everybody on this squad. Patrick Kane no longer around. They just have really one good player, in my opinion, on this team, and that's Seth Jones. They're not strong in goal. They're inside the top 3 in allowing shot attempts, quality chances, high danger, scoring chances, and shots at 5 and 5 per 60, according to Natural Stat Trick over the last month. And as I mentioned, they're a lot weaker than they were a week and a half ago, before they traded Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves done for the season. So I think Claude Giroux in that top line and Tim Stutzla, they can't be stopped. Tkachuk, Giroux, Stutzla, all of these guys to get the point, hit the score sheet over at Bet365. Tim Stutzla, you see on the board with Victor Arvidsson. Now Stutzla's got goals in 4 straight games. He got 5 over that span. He's had at least 4 shots in 4 straight games, and he's cleared 2.5 shots in 8 of his last 9 games. And Victor Arvidsson's been pretty consistent as well. Now both of these guys are too juiced to take as a single. So I've combined them over at DraftKings at plus 160. Arvidsson has cleared in 3 straight games and 8 of his past 10. He's done it pretty comfortably over his last 3 games, 4 shots, 5 and 6. So I like both of those guys inside the same game. Well, it's not the same game, but it is a parlay there over at DraftKings at plus 160. Andrei Kuzmenko has just been fantastic. Been talking a lot about him over at Dangle Betselli. You know, up on that top line with Anthony Beauvillier and Elias Pettersson, and really Kuzmenko is not going to get Rookie of the Year. He came over from KHL. He's, I believe he's too old to get the award, but he's up to 29 goals in the season. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 goals here since February 15th. He's got points in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his last 9 hockey games. So minus 122 there in a matchup against the Nashville Predators, another team basically rostering an AHL squad. They shipped off most of their good players, and they're very, very thin up front. I don't even know who's starting. It could be Saros, but it doesn't really matter. I like Kuzmenko to hit the score sheet, and I like Nino Niederreiter to hit the score sheet as well, playing on the top line with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele. Nino Niederreiter is going to get a boost here, right? Moving from Nashville to Winnipeg. He does have points in 2 of his last 3 games in the ice time. 20-48, he played on the top line in his last game. He's got 6 shots and the 2 points in his last 2 matchups, and one of those points came on the power play. And then Jack Quinn is like my guy. I really like Jack Quinn. Been talking a lot about Jack Quinn. You guys know how much I like Alex Tuck sideline. Jack Quinn moved up on that top line. He's got 5 points over his last 4 games. 2 of them have been goals. He's got 8 shots on goal in his last 3 games. A significant boost in ice time, but playing on that top line with Tage Thompson, playing on that top line with Jeff Skinner. I was looking for a point prop for Jack Quinn, and I couldn't find one. We've been putting it in the bet tracker for the past couple games. It's been plus money for him to hit the score sheet, but he does have 2 goals in his last 3 games. A matchup against the Oilers, right? The Oilers play this up-tempo style of hockey. They've been playing to the overs pretty consistently this season and really don't have the goaltending. So I like Jack Quinn as a little bit of a long shot to score a goal, but if you can find a point prop out there, I really do like it. We're going to take one more break, and then we'll dive into the fantasy hockey talk to round out Mean Streets. Back in a couple. Hang tight.
I can't say enough about what we've got going on over at ftnbets.com.
At FTN Bets, your bankroll can be profitable. With the FTN Bet Tracker, you can tell your favorite experts across all sports, including the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball.
Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. I'm your host, Chris Meaney.
And with our premium content, you can take your bets to the next level. Only $49.99 a month. Use the tools the pros use at FTN. Our betting models run over 100,000 simulations of every game, with sides and totals in the NFL, the NBA, and more. Use the home run predictor to see who'll hit a bomb deep. Our NFL player projections will make you a DFS king. And the FTN Prop Shop always finds the best odds for your player props. All tools, projections, and models are powered by FTN Data.
People usually want some goal scorers, so I got a few for you. Stützle, Hyman, Barabanov, right? He's been hot goals in back-to-back games for the Sharks. Niederreiter, Hintz, Kempe, Ovechkin, Kuzmenko. Sens are plus 450 over at DraftKings to make the playoffs. They're 3 points back. They're 4 back of the first wildcard spot of the Islanders, but they got 3 games in hand. They are rolling. They're feeling it. I love the Jacob Chikrin trade. Quan, can we show this quickly? This article is free over at ftnfantasy.com. It's breaking down every week remaining in the fantasy hockey season. It is the fantasy hockey playoff guide. You see to the left, those are head-to-head playoffs. Those are the amount of games, the most remaining games that the teams have. The Islanders have the fewest. So if it looks like you're going to make the playoffs, potentially you're going to have a bye in your fantasy hockey format. I know it may feel wrong to cut a Bo Horvat, a Noah Dobson, but you got to do what you got to do. It's all about games played. That's how you get the advantage on your opponent in a head-to-head format, rotisserie, whatever it is. Carolina, Colorado, Buffalo, those are teams I would target. Nashville doesn't really have a whole lot to offer. It's just good news for like Roman Josi and Matt Duchene. Good news for those guys, Thomas Novak in maybe a deeper format. Week 21, those are the teams I highlighted with 4 games this week. The Ducks, the Sabres, the Panthers, or the Carolina Hurricanes, the Calgary Flames, the Wild, the Devils, the Sharks, the Golden Knights, and the Winnipeg Jets. I wanted to bring to your attention Jack Quinn, which I already did in the last block. Mikhail Backlund, John Klingberg with Minnesota on that top power play. Thomas Tatar is a deep league inside that top 6, a lethal top 6. Timo Meier scored in his Devils debut yesterday. Mentioned Barabanov, Eklund for the Sharks. Going to get some opportunity on that top line. They recalled him over the weekend. Barbashev for the Golden Knights, 2 goals on the top line over the weekend. Niederreiter I mentioned as well. Also, Seth Jarvis for the Carolina Hurricanes and Mason McTavish for the Anaheim Ducks. It's all there. It's very detailed, guys. Any questions, hit me up. Good luck on the ice tonight, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.